Hey everyone! So, whether you're covered in tattoos or you're just thinking about getting your very first one, have you ever really stopped to think about what's in the ink? Today, we're going to peel back the curtain a little bit and look at the science and, more importantly, the safety of tattoo ink. Let's dive in.
It seems like a pretty simple question, doesn't it? But, the answer is way more complex than you might think. We all see the beautiful art on the skin, but the real story, that starts inside that tiny little ink bottle. So, what exactly is in there? And the big question is it safe?
Okay, so let's start with the most practical stuff, the standards. I want you to think of this as your personal safety checklist. It's really the first thing you should be thinking about before a needle even gets close to your skin. Getting this part right is, well, it's everything for a safe tattoo experience.
This right here is the absolute baseline, the non-negotiable starting point. Any ink that's going on your body has to be sterile, and it has to be clearly labeled. This isn't just, a friendly suggestion. It's your #1 defense against things like infection. But that brings up another question. What should a clear label even tell you?
Yeah, a label can be covered in all kinds of text, but which parts are the ones that really matter? What's the difference between an ink you can trust and one that's kinda sketchy? It all comes down to a few key details that give you transparency.
Okay, so this is exactly what you need to look for. The manufacturer and distributor info, that tells you where it came from. The lot number is super important. If there's ever a problem or a recall, that number traces the ink right back to its specific batch. A full list of ingredients? Absolutely non-negotiable, especially for allergies and safety. And finally, you've got the dates: production, expiration, and how long it's good for after you open it. This is your proof of quality control.
And here's a really simple but powerful tip. The label should say, straight up, that the product is for tattooing. I know, it sounds obvious, right? But this is what confirms it was made with the intention of being put into a human body and not, say, for painting a car.
So, we've talked about what should be on the outside of the bottle. Now let's get into what's actually inside. Understanding the basic ingredients of tattoo ink is the key to knowing why that ingredient list we just mentioned is so critical. At the very heart of any tattoo ink, you have the pigment. These are the tiny solid particles that give the ink its color. The vibrant reds, the deep blues, the solid blacks. This is the stuff that actually stays in your skin to create that lasting image.
This breaks down the basic formula perfectly. You start with the pigments for the color, but those solid particles need a way to get into your skin, right? That's where the carrier liquid comes in, things like witch hazel or purified water. It suspends the pigment and helps deliver it smoothly. And finally, you have additives, which are in there to keep the ink sterile and stable while it's just sitting in the bottle.
And this brings us right back to the label. See how it all connects? Knowing the specific chemicals used for the pigments, the carrier, and the additives is so important. A complete ingredient list lets you, your artist, and even your doctor know exactly what is going into your body.
Which leads us to our final and honestly, the most important section, your health. Why does all this stuff, the labels, the ingredients, the standards, actually matter so much? Well, because a tattoo isn't just on you, it's in you.
Now here's something you might not know, and it's pretty fascinating. While the art itself seems to stay put in your skin, your body's immune system is always working. And over time, it can actually break down tiny ink particles and carry them away through your lymphatic system.
And we're not talking about a trivial amount here. Your body receives and has to process a measurable quantity of this ink, especially if you have large tattoos or a lot of them. That's why the chemical makeup of that ink is so incredibly important. It's a foreign substance that your body has to manage for the rest of your life.
And that is why the chemistry matters. The specific compounds used to create those colors can have real health effects, from things like allergic reactions all the way to other long-term concerns. Knowing what's in the ink is your first step to understanding its potential impact on your body.
When it comes right down to it, it's all about this. Being an informed consumer is the key to tattoo wellness. Knowing the right questions to ask, knowing what standards to look for, that's what empowers you to make the safest possible choice for your body and your art.
So what does this all mean for you? It really just boils down to 3 simple steps. First, always check the label for all that key info we talked about. Second, have a real conversation with your artist about the ink they're using. And third, know the basic standards for what makes that ink safe.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Now that you have this knowledge, you're not just a passive canvas anymore. You're an active participant in your own safety. So, the next time you're in that chair, what will you ask?